Hi, Spark Kids! Hi, Sparky! Why do I say that every week? Well, I want to say hello every week. You want me to try something different? Hiya! Hello! Howdy! What's up? Oh, let's get on with it and watch this week's Spark Kids, Sparky.
God spoke to Moses and told him again that he would not go into the promised land. He told him to take Joshua and have the priest Eleazar anoint him to be the next leader of the Israelites. And he did. God spoke to Moses and told him many important things about how the Israelites should live. He divided up the land between the different tribes, established some cities of refuge, and spoke about many of the laws of the people. And then Moses told everyone all the stories of what God had done for the Israelites. He spoke about when they had come to the promised land before, and how the spies had gone into the land, but then the Israelites had been too afraid to enter it. He spoke of God's penalty for their rebellion, that no one of the generation who came out of Egypt would step into their promised land, except Joshua and Caleb, who believed. He spoke of the Israelites' times in the wilderness, of when they had defeated the armies and kings, and of God forbidding Moses to enter the promised land. Then Moses spoke again about God's commandment and rules, and commanded the Israelites to do what God had said. He reminded them that God had chosen them and would go before them into the promised land. He commanded them again and again to honour God and to obey him. After he had spoken of many things, God told Moses to go up the mountain called Abiram and to die there. Moses spoke a final blessing over the Israelites and then went up the mountain. When he was there, God said to him, "This is the land which I have promised to Abraham. I have let you see it, but you will not enter it." And then Moses died on the mountain. He was 120 years old when he died, and he was healthy and could see perfectly. The Israelites wept for 30 days when Moses died, and Joshua the son of Nun, their new leader, was filled with wisdom because Moses had laid hands on him. The people of Israel obeyed him as they had obeyed Moses.
Hey Spark Kids, we are coming to the very end of Moses' life. We've come to the point where he dies, and Moses had this crazy exciting life, didn't he? He first was thrown in a river with crocodiles. He was adopted by a princess. He saw God's burning in a bush. He had the plagues. He parted the Red Sea. He took everyone to the promised land. All these incredible things happened. He met God on a mountain, but at the very end of his life, he's not going into the promised land. Now, this is something that happened, that Moses did something God wasn't very pleased with, and he said, "Moses, you're not going into the promised land." And if I were Moses at that point, I might be quite disappointed. I mean, God, I've led your people, I've done this and this and this, don't you remember this? Why aren't you letting me into your promised land? I might moan, I might be grumpy, I might be angry, I might be cross. But that is not what Moses does here. Instead, he seems to do just the opposite. He gathers all the Israelites, come and listen. And he starts telling them all the amazing things that God has done for them. In fact, all of this is gathered together in the Bible in a book called Deuteronomy. But it's a weird book because it's actually just saying everything that the previous book has just said. Previous two books. It's saying all the things that Moses had done and God had done for the Israelites. But Moses is saying, remember when God did this? Remember when God did this? He's telling them all the things God has told them and done for them. Why does he say it all over again? And why isn't he disappointed to not be going into the promised land, which is where he's been heading all this time? Now, I found the clue at the very end of the book of Deuteronomy that I think will help us to understand this. It says, in verse 10 and 11, "Since then, No prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, who did all those signs and wonders the Lord sent him to do in Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his officials and to his whole land. Moses spends a whole book of the Bible. He spends hours of his last hours of life speaking about the importance of closeness and living with God, because he realized that actually not making it to the promised land, was the best and most important thing. It wasn't God's promises, what God says he could do for you, but it was actually God himself. It was his relationship with God that was much more important than anything else. He knew that the most important things he could tell the Israelites weren't just about how to live in the promised land, but how to live with God. Moses had been face to face with God on the mountaintop, and he knew that there was nothing better than that. And so the last thing he wanted to say before he died was, listen to God, trust God, obey God, love God. He wanted to make absolutely sure that everyone was getting the message. And sometimes, we read the Bible and it seems like, I've read this before, or that's the same as that other bit. But the reason it's important to repeat and repeat is because it's saying such important things. And if we don't repeat things, we often forget them. So it's really important for us to repeat things too, to keep reading the Bible over again, to keep remembering all the things, all the incredible things that God has done for us. So why don't we say a prayer now that helps us to remember and praise who God is. Dear God, thank you for loving me and rescuing me. Thank you for sending Jesus so we can be together forever. Amen. See you next week, Spark Kids.
So you see, Sparky, the Bible does repeat itself when it's really important. You think it's more important than some of the stuff I say? Yeah, you're probably right. I'll tell you what, Sparky, for this week's craft, I think we should write a letter to ourselves for us to read or look at in a year's time. You've already done one? What does it say? Let's have a look. Can I read it? Dear Sparky, are you still the coolest pup in the world? Have you caught a frisbee? Love, Sparky. And a picture as well. I mean, that's pretty good. Do you think the kids can do better, Sparky? Maybe. So, this week, draw a picture or write a letter to yourself that you can read in a year's time. I can't wait to see what they do. How about you, Sparky? There you go.